About 2-3 weeks ago, I came across a TikTok all about how a lot of the more popular female characters, especially in fantasy and in fiction, end up having kids at the end of their stories. And I thought, well, that's a little weird. And then I started thinking more and more about it. And I got, maybe a little heated, maybe a little angry. So the next day, I messaged all my friends, asked them to send me their list of female characters who ended up with kids and either why they thought they should have or why they shouldn't have, just getting a general poll from a lot of my female friends. That was all well and good. And this weekend, I had already set aside time. I said, I'm going to film this video. I've got, plenty of good points to talk about. I feel very passionate about this. And then Friday was June 24th, 2022. I still want to record this video because it is something that I still am very passionate about. It's something I still very much am interested in. Just talking through this topic. The point of this video is to talk about how the concept that a woman's happily ever after is not complete, and a woman's life is not fulfilled until she has a child. And how that is seen in a lot of even my favorite female characters, some of my role models. And so that was the point of the video. That's going to remain the point of the video. I'm not going to talk about anything that's going on other than the fantasy worlds of these characters and why I think either the circumstances of their pregnancies and procuring these children is not in line with either their character arc or maybe why it's just in general problematic for young women and young girls to consume this content. It's unfortunate that this is kind of my mood right now, because I do really care about this topic. So with a little bit of that historical concept, let's talk about someone who's being talked about a lot right now, or a series that's being talked about a lot right now. We're going to start by talking about Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games. Katniss Everdeen grew up watching children die on her TV screen, as well as in the streets, because she was in one of the poorest parts of District 12, and she talks about how she would often see children just starve to death on the streets. One of the first things that Katniss says in the entire series, in her first interaction with Gale, they are sitting by, they're sitting there waiting for the reaping to begin, and they're in the woods, and one of the first things out of Katniss Everdeen's mouth is,
I'm never having kids.
Which makes complete sense, because if Katniss and Gale didn't have to be the main breadwinners for their family, they could have both have left District 12 and lived in the woods. But they can't. They can't leave their families behind. Their families would not survive out in the woods. It'd just be too hard. So they have to stay. So really, before we even know Katniss Everdeen, the first thing that she says is, I never want to have kids. So then, Katniss Everdeen gets dropped into an arena and experiences many brutal deaths of children firsthand, including Rue, who is the same age as her little sister. She then goes back into the arena a second time, becomes the face of a rebellion against her will, has her own district blown up, watches a warehouse full of sick and dying children get bombed because she was there, and then after watching and experiencing many horrifying things in war, witnesses her sister die in front of her. So when I was reading Hunger Games, there was this palpable thought process and inner monologue of hers that was like, no matter where I go, someone is going to die. Like, no matter what I do, the people around me that I love and care about are going to die. Yeah, to say that Katniss's opinions on having children, I would say, are probably still very, very strong by the end of the book. It feels like that'd be accurate. It feels like after everything that she went through, Katniss Everdeen would not be the first one to jump onto the let's have kids train. And then the epilogue happens. And Peeta, oh doe-eyed Peeta, pressures her over 15 years to have children. And this is exactly out of the book. It took 5, 10, 15 years for me to agree. But Peeta wanted them so badly. When I first felt her stirring inside me, I was consumed with terror that felt as old as life itself. Only the joy of holding her in my arms could tame it. Carrying him was a little easier, but not by much. Like, that's really fucked up. So, I'm not really Team Peeta on this one. That one, there is no reason why Katniss Everdeen should have had kids at the end of the Hunger Games. And I have heard a lot of people talking about their reasonings why they think that is a good ending to the series. And I could see it. Most of their main points include, by Katniss having kids, it shows that she feels safe and secure enough. The capital is gone. All of the bad stuff is gone. Now Katniss feels comfortable enough to have kids. But you could have done that through Annie. So, yeah, the argument that Katniss at the end of Mockingjay having kids signifies that she is comfortable and safe and happy now, because the capital is gone, doesn't really... That's not enough for me. That's not enough of a reason. And another thing, the entire book series, Katniss has to change herself to fit the mold of what people want from her. You know, she has to turn herself into the main breadwinner for her family so that they don't starve to death. Katniss has to become a parent for her sister Prim. She has to become a killer. She has to kill children. She has to become the girl on fire. She has to become Peeta's lover. She has to become the face of a rebellion. She has to become the face of an anti-rebellion for a short period of time. She has to become the doe-eyed, sweet, pregnant woman thrown into the arena for the second time. She, has to become is forced into so many roles against her will throughout the series. I really would have liked for at the end of the entire series for her to find herself. And her having kids doesn't really fit into that category for me. So yeah, those are the big things. Next, I wanted to talk about all of the women in the Harry Potter series. So every single young female protagonist or young female side character in the Hunger Games ends up having children. Every single one of them. If they're a named character, chances are they have a named child. Now, to preserve my sanity for the Harry Potter series, I've kind of compartmentalized the 7 books and the 8 movies. All of that is canon. Everything else is like fan fiction, even if it is from the original author. So take that as you will. That's how I'm going to rule it from here on. Now, I want to reiterate, the concept of all of these female characters having kids is not the issue. The issue is that every single one of them has kids, and we know that they all lived happily ever after because they had kids. We get that lovely scene in the last movie where Everyone's putting all of their kids onto Hogwarts Express, it's like a little mini reunion where everyone's putting their kids onto the train, and we all know that they've lived happy, fulfilling lives because all of these women have had children. So that's kind of the issue with that. But also, if you were a wizard, specifically a student at Hogwarts, during the time period that Harry Potter went to school at Hogwarts, why would you send your kid there? You existed at a time where you, as a child, had to arm yourself in order to survive an attack from the world's most powerful wizard at the time. But maybe they don't love their kids. I don't know. I have heard that all of these female characters do get jobs, but that is not the way that we know they lived happily ever after. That's not the way that we know they lived successful lives. The way we know that they are successful and happy is because they have kids that they're shipping off to their deaths. The next character I wanted to talk about is Farah. For those who haven't read A Court of Thorns and Roses, also known as ACOTAR, Farah is the main character in the first 3 books, plus the 4th book, which is like maybe 150 pages, so that's like 3.5. And then she becomes pregnant in the current last book of the series, which is called A Court of Silver Flames. But the main character in that book series is Nesta, Farah's older sister. Right? Good. So Farah and her partner Rysand, their relationship already has a ton of different issues, but for now we're just going to talk about the pregnancy and the baby situation between the two of them. So, lunch buddies, let me pose you a question. You have been given the gift of longevity. Congratulations. You have fallen in love with your destined person, like true love to a T. You are bound to this person through a magical link that is never fully explained. Anyway, the two of you now get to live together for hundreds, maybe even thousands of years. You are happy. This is everything you as a person could have ever wanted. Your every need is fulfilled. You have a ton of friends to support and love you, and it's literally everything you could have ever wanted. In addition to that, you have some incredible magical powers that you haven't fully explored to their end. You don't know what you could do, and there's so many awesome possibilities that are set forth in front of you. Again, hundreds, maybe even thousands of years of this being your life. Now, why would you then choose to immediately become a mother? Damn near immediately. So instead of enjoying hundreds of years worth of freedom and newly found power with the love of your life and all of these friends, we'll get to that, friends who support and love you, you choose to become a mother? Because that's now also permanent. You don't get to just pick up and put that down. That is now your eternity. You're a mother. And again, I am not bashing people's decisions to become a mother. What I am saying is that Farah is canon less than 23 years old because she starts off the series at 19. Rysand, her partner, is over 500 years old. So you can see why I need to do a whole new video on this, right? I don't know, maybe there was this call in the back of her mind, you need to be taking care of something right now, have a baby. And no one said, hey Farah, let's dial it back a little bit, let's hold off because you have all of eternity together and you're jumping the gun. But yeah, I'm just speculating that. So that takes us to A Court of Silver Flames, the fifth book in the series. This one is all about Nesta, Farah's older sister. Now, I don't want to get into this one too much because this one teeters very closely to the events that happened 2 days ago. I feel that this is this part of the series really ruined the mood for me. Let's say you have an illness, a not great illness. It is one that none of the doctors that you are working with have ever dealt with before. But they tell you time after time, appointment after appointment, like, you're going to pull through. We're going to do everything we can for you. You got this. You know, like, they have full support of you in making sure that you recover from this illness. And then behind your back, they go to your partner, your best friend, people around you, and they say they're not going to make it. This is it. They're going to die. Until we can find a magical cure to help them, this is it. In 9 months, they're going to die. While you continue out your life thinking, like, everything's fine. I'm going to continue to make plans for my future. I'm going to continue to enjoy the company of my friends. Every single one of your friends and family is silently mourning for your soon and upcoming death. That's what happens in A Court of Silver Flames. Now, that's not the main plot, but that is one of the major plots that I took away from the series. Except take away illness and replace it with pregnancy. Fuck Rice for that one. Fuck the entire inner court for that one. You know, I don't understand. Like, I get it. They were all under oath from Rysand. Their High Lord told them not to. But when has that ever stopped them anyway? Because not only did all of her friends and family choose to keep her up-and-coming death a secret from her, they removed her ability to choose whether her life was worth that of an unborn child. This group of people that we're supposed to root for literally did not give the main character the right to choose if she lives or dies. Because she was carrying a High Lord's baby. That's all. So, yeah, fuck them for that one. Yeah. Yeah, that one took it out of me. That one really sucks. 'Cause I wrote all of that weeks ago. These are my emotional support pals. Graham the Triceratops and Scoop the Narwhal. So, next is Naruto, which I think that anime in and of itself already doesn't have a good representation of women in general, so this isn't like a huge shocker. But I do think that the level at which the home wife making happens is a little egregious in Naruto, because we see a lot of these strong, capable young women fighting against the Akatsuki, against Obito, against all those motherfuckers that got brought back to life, against Kaguya. Like, all this shit happens, and then the next time we see them, they're all in little, like, aprons, and they've got kids around them. I mean, this is off of, again, I do the same thing as Harry Potter that I do with Naruto. If it's not in the original Naruto series, it's fan fiction. Yeah, that's kind of where that's at. Next up, we have Elizabeth Swann, because I have some questions. I don't know if it's been fully expressed on the channel, but I love pirates. I love learning about pirates. I love most pirate-themed shows. One of my favorite D&D characters is a pirate. I have a very strong, like, I love pirates. So Elizabeth Swann obviously is going to be one of my all-time favorite characters ever. And the reason why I really like Elizabeth Swann is through the course of 3 movies, we really get to see a young woman get to decide and choose who she wants to be. Does she want to be a governess? Does she want to be a pirate? Does she want to marry Will? Does she want to marry Jack? What does freedom look like for Elizabeth Swann? What is that? Well, who is she going to be? And she has the freedom to choose who she wants to be. So at the end of the last film, the last time we see Elizabeth Swann in the original trilogy, she is the Pirate King. She has led all of the pirates around the world to fight against a giant military formation thing. She is married to Will. She is really kind of gets everything that she wants. And despite the little spicy scene that we get at the very end of the 3rd movie, that does not mean to me personally that that's the last time they'll ever see each other in 10 years, because she's the Pirate King. She's gonna do some shit on the seas. She wants to be a pirate. That's cool, great. And then in the 5th movie, we get to meet their kid, who is in the military, the British military, and she has gone back to living on land. That was never, where does that make sense? Why would she do that? That doesn't check out. She's wearing a flowery, bouncy dress again. The last time we saw her, she was in a sexy black dress, getting kissed up her leg by Will Turner, and all of a sudden, she has sent her son to be in direct opposition to her 2 best friends, her husband and Jack Sparrow. I don't get it. And again, having a kid is one of the easiest ways to tie yourself down to something, or to someone. And Elizabeth's whole thing is having the freedom to choose to do and be whoever she wants at any moment. I get it. Keira Knightley didn't want anything to do with the Pirate series, so they kind of had to write off her character. Yeah, Elizabeth Swann should never have had a kid at all. No. If she did have a kid, he would be one of the most dangerous people to ever sail the seas, because he is the son of the Pirate King and the captain of the Flying Dutchman. Another pirate lady that ended up having kids, Captain Amelia from Treasure Planet. I know that trauma bonding is a real thing. I know that having extensive amounts of trauma in a situation can bind you to someone. But why the dog? Why the dog? She had more chemistry with the Rock Man. Captain Arrow. Those two? Fucking gold. But she also had a kid. With the goddamn dog. That's not how genetics works. But there you go. And lastly, for some of my major points, I have the lovely ladies from Avatar: The Last Airbender. So while it appears that everyone else on Team Avatar went out into the world and was really able to put their name out there, really able to change the world and leave their stamp on the world as they knew it, in Legend of Korra, it kind of felt like Katara's true impression that was left on the world was that she played baby maker to The Last Airbender. This is why it frustrates me, is because Katara is a really awesome bender, one of the best. I'm sure once she got older, she was the best. But when you stand next to The Last Airbender and you stand next to the Avatar, no matter what you do, it's not going to hold up. And that's really unfortunate, because I really like Katara, and I think she is the most capable waterbender, probably by the end of her time. But her legacy that's left on the world is not that she became the Fire Lord. It's not she was the first metal bender. You know, at the end of the day, it was Katara, wife to the Avatar, mother of the next generation of airbenders. And that really, really sucks. In addition to that, Toph has kids. I completely forgot about that. It was thrown in there for her to have kids for the benefit of the next series. It was thrown in so that we could see Toph's kids in Legend of Korra, versus it actually making sense that she'd have kids at all. And I don't have a ton of points on that because I didn't watch Legend of Korra all the way through. So shame me in the comments. So that is all of the characters I wanted to talk about in detail, about them having kids. But there are so many more. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I reached out to a ton of my friends and asked them for their characters, for some of their favorite characters that ended up having kids at the end of their shows or movies. So we've got Leia from Star Wars, Toka in Tokyo Ghoul, Sypha from Castlevania, Rachel and Monica from Friends. All of the Disney princesses either have kids on screen or are shown having kids later on in their lifetimes. Princess Fiona, and then a ton of K-drama characters that all end up having kids. So there's a lot of characters, a lot of very popular characters that end up having kids, and feeding into this concept that, you know, a female character, a woman, is only happy at the end of her story and has only reached that peak fulfillment of her story if she has a kid at the end. And obviously there are a lot of female characters that end their stories like this. So if I missed a couple, I know that I did. Please add them into the comments below. I'd love to talk more with you about some of these characters. But in addition to that, I wanted to talk about some subversions of this trope. The biggest one that I came across was Yennefer from the Witcher series. Yennefer is interesting, or I find her interesting, because for the first couple times that Geralt really talks to Yennefer and they really interact, Yennefer is kind of baby crazy. She really, really wants to have a kid. But it's not because she wants to have a child. It's because that choice was taken away from her. If you really read into the series and if you watch the show, that's fine, but reading the books, it's really clear that whenever Yennefer talks about wanting to have a kid, or that kind of conversation comes up, and you start digging through the, like, well, I want a kid because I want one, you know, like that kind of thing, it really feels like Yennefer doesn't necessarily want a kid. She just wants to have the right to choose if she has a kid, because that choice was taken away from her. She did not realize at the time, she was so focused on getting her powers and getting her abilities, she did not realize the cost. When Yennefer's talking about the desire to have children, it's never the desire to raise them, to teach them, to care for them, to love them. It is more about the concept of, I get to choose if I have a kid. And I agree. I think Geralt says it very clearly in the Witcher show. In one of the later episodes, he's like, you would make a terrible mother. And I 100% agree, because you see her interacting with Ciri. We don't see it too much in the show, but in the books, Yennefer's an asshole to Ciri. She calls her an ugly duck. She's like a bitch to her all the time. It's not a cute look, and it's not a look of someone who has been begging and dying to have a child. Another really good subversion of this trope recently has been Wanda, or the Scarlet Witch, from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Wanda's want for children is never about her actually having the children. It's more of a motive to show the audience how far she's gone, and how evil she is by going off and stealing another version of herself's kids. So yeah, I really like Wanda. To be abundantly clear, I love WandaVision, and I love that movie and the way that they show her descent into madness. I think it's amazing. But it's not... Wanda's character arc is not about the kids. The kids are the MacGuffin. The kids are the unobtainable object that she can never have, to show how crazy she's going. So that is kind of all that I have. I've been struggling to find like a good ending to this video for a while, or like an overarching like message to put into the world with this content that I've created. But I think that on the night that I first saw that TikTok, something popped into my brain. And it's not the most profound thing that's ever been said on the internet. And that thought is that ever since I was a baby, I have had a baby in my arms. Ever since I was born, this expectation has been put upon me that I will have a kid. Every commercial break, every toy aisle, every beloved character that I had growing up from a young age into my teens, even now into my young adulthood, has promised me that in order to be happy and to be a successful woman, I have to do literally everything a man can do, but with a baby on my hip. To be fair, I don't know if that full concept or thought process is a universal thing for every single woman out there. I know that many factors play into it. A religious upbringing, my country's very clear distaste for anybody born with a uterus, or maybe some underlying things that were built into my mind along the way. Before I knew how to tie my shoes, I knew how to change a baby's diaper. And that's really upsetting, because I'm more than a to-be baby-making machine. I have my own thoughts, my own wishes for my future, my own things that I want to accomplish. But all of that has been overshadowed by the fact that unless I do all of that and have a kid at the same time, I'm gonna be a spinster. So I don't have a happy end to this video. I didn't know, I thought that when I was writing this script or writing this outline that maybe by the end of it I'd have like a funny like ha ha ha, you know, maybe a motivational thing, maybe like a good ending. But it's June 26th, 2022. I hope you find a happily ever after. And if that's with a baby, fantastic, but I hope that you find it on your own. I hope you can find yourself without creating another being. And I hope that you know that you're loved. And you don't need another human being to tell you that. You don't need to give birth to another human being to prove to anyone that you're happy and fulfilled in your life. And not wanting to have a kid doesn't make you any less of a woman. This has been Kat from the Lotus Media Studios. Bye, buddies.